Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books and I'm dipping another toe into Jane Austen July. This is a booktube event created by Katie at Books and Things and hosted by Katie and Marissa at Blatantly Bookish and Claudia at Spinster's Library. This time round I've read Pride and Prejudice. I'm not following the prompts for Jane Austen July. I am behind in all manner of ways when it comes to Jane Austen, but I'm not going to be scared of her, although I think this is what they call imposter syndrome. I feel a little when I'm reading Jane Austen that I am back at school, which I'm going to take as a good thing because it must mean that I'm learning. However, I'm probably, in this short video, going to add nothing new. There are a lot of Jane Austen videos on BookTube, and I doubt I have any sparklingly original insight. I might start with reading some other reactions to the novel from people who probably know a bit better than me, and I'll start with Annabella Milbank, later Lady Byron, in her 1813 appraisal taken from personal correspondence. I have finished the novel called Pride and Prejudice, which I think is a very superior work. It depends not on any of the common resources of novel writers, no drownings, no conflagrations, no runaway horses, nor lapdogs and parrots. I really think it is the most probable I have ever read. The characters, which are not amiable, are diverting, and all of them are consistently supported. I wish to know who the author is, or S, as I am told. And this, which I've actually seen attributed to two people, it's been attributed to Sir Walter Scott and also to William Gifford. I'm tending towards Scott. No dark passages, no secret chambers, no wild howlings in long galleries, no drops of blood upon a rusty dagger, things that should now be left to ladies' maids and sentimental washerwomen. So, good classic misogyny there from probably Sir Walter. And that was 1815 in September. However, this must have left an impact on him, the book, because in the same month I have read Pride and Prejudice again. 'Tis very good. So early rereads there from Sir Walter Scott, probably, possibly William Gifford. Well, I have not reread it, but I have read it for the first time. Now, I read it in ebook, but I have a physical copy here for prop purposes. I felt when I read this that I knew a lot of this story already. I think it's just the osmosis, hearing people talking about the book, seeing lots of clips of certainly the famous 1995 television series, which I never saw when it came out, but I am now halfway through and enjoying immensely. But if an Austen ignoramus like me knows the plot or the basic plot of the book, despite never having read it, that just shows how far the story has permeated into the culture. So literary gap filled in reading this one. Perhaps I ought to write about it instead to make the words come out better. This seems to work for both Darcy and Captain Wentworth in Persuasion, which I read the other week. In fact, possibly the only bit that felt a little unrealistic in Pride and Prejudice is the scene of Darcy's first proposal of marriage. Lizzie's response to that just seems too well constructed to be off the cuff. Perhaps she's just better at stringing a sentence together than I am. Darcy certainly delivers possibly the worst ever proposal of marriage that doesn't involve a jumbotron at a sporting event he expresses himself very badly in speaking. And the letter he writes to Elizabeth the day after doesn't start so much better either, but by the end of it he is expressing himself forcefully, thoughtfully, and probably without being interrupted as well. Darcy and Wentworth, both who find their speech failing them, perhaps because they can't speak in public in front of other people about what they want to, find their voices through their pens. And the effect for Wentworth is much more immediate upon Anne, but Darcy's letter to Elizabeth plants that seed of doubt which she ruminates on. The authorial voice in Pride and Prejudice versus Persuasion I find a lot clearer, and I think that's because it's a bit more detached. It is an amused detachment, suspending judgment quite often, dispensing it via sort of pithy asides, but not moralising too much. I find that the character, the authorial voice, finds its echo in the book is actually Mr. Bennet. Perhaps Jane Austen is Mr. Bennet, rather than identifying with any of the five Bennet sisters. All of the characters are fantastically drawn, and certainly in unveiling Elizabeth's change of heart by such small gradients throughout the book makes her character all the more believable. Where the characters are less believable, Mr. Collins, Mrs. Bennet, the humour in their portrayal, I think, masks wonderfully any sort of credibility gap that creatures like this could possibly exist. But Elizabeth arrives on the page at the beginning of the book fully rounded, but there is still room to show further growth. Elizabeth is constantly challenging other characters, and throughout the book the characters who she does butt up against are more and more socially powerful. She doesn't back away from any of it. I mean, we start with Mr. Collins, then Miss Bingley, then Darcy, and finally Lady Catherine. I don't know whether that Elizabeth at the start of the book would have dared say much against Lady Catherine to begin with, but I like to think she would do. But there's no doubt by the end of the book that she knows herself enough to hold her own. In comparing her to Anne in Persuasion, she is absolutely much more self-assured in her opinions, and possibly a little too much. Austen uses caricature as criticism, like Elizabeth in the book. Any sort of any animosity is expressed through gentle mocking and satire, and sometimes cutting satire. Elizabeth does realise she can't live in permanent opposition to people, so dealing with some of these characters, and we'll take Mr. Collins as an example, dealing with him in a sly or arch way, sort of comments that he seems absolutely oblivious to. I don't think the man will be able to determine a double meaning in any comment made to him. It allows her to express herself without permanently damaging familial relationships. There is, however, a danger in taking that to the extreme, and I think that is shown by the example of Mr. Bennet. Here is a sort of detached amused man, almost sort of so laid back he's horizontal, but it is his indifference and his failure to live up to reality, his wanting to escape reality in a world of books, that is very nearly his undoing. There's something in the book that I don't know if it annoys me yet. I'm going to have to think more about it. But it is the failure of a whole host of characters to learn anything. Bingley and Jane are an example of virtue rewarded. They barely change throughout the course of the book, but we're given to understand that they're pretty much perfect from the get-go. Elizabeth and Darcy are the characters who make the biggest strides towards change, and they are suitably rewarded for doing so. But for other characters, Mary Bennet, for example, she will go on believing that she is right about everything, and when she talks about how Lydia will sort of never regain any respectability, she is proved wrong but doesn't realise it. She is proved wrong by Darcy sort of jumping into the situation and not making everything better, but at least fixing the immediate problems through his secret superpower of being wealthy. Mr. Collins is unchanged throughout the book. He comes out okay in the same situation, possibly an enhanced situation, because he has made a good marriage than he did at the beginning of the book. He is oblivious to his own failings and borderline odiousness. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet seem to learn little in the way of lessons from the outcome of the book. Mr. Bennet learns perhaps a little bit. Mrs. Bennet, I'm convinced, has learned nothing. And at the other extreme to Bingley and Jane, Lydia and Wickham, I'm sure, are disappointed with their lot versus their unrealistic expectations, but they end up much better off than they realistically could have expected at their lowest point, even if this comes at the munificence of first Darcy and then at the end of the book, as we're told in the closing paragraphs, from the charity of Lydia's sisters. I suppose bad people getting away with it and learning no lessons is a model for our age as well as Austen's, but it does rankle a little. But what's the alternative? In this novel there is precious little didacticism. There is little in the way of moralising, and I think that's a good thing, because too much moralising can absolutely ruin a book. Samuel Richardson, take note. Possibly the only character who is truly thwarted in their intentions through their own actions is Lady Catherine de Bourgh. In her overconfident conviction that everyone pays attention and respects her, she scuppers the arrangement of marriage she has in mind for Darcy with her daughter, and prompts Darcy's second proposal to Elizabeth. Perhaps it is punishment enough to spend the rest of her days, even in splendid surroundings, with a conversationless blank of a daughter and a human footstool like Mr. Collins. Lady Byron possibly was not entirely correct when she said that this novel was void of lapdogs. But Mr. Collins certainly qualifies. Anyway, I love this book. I was half expecting to like it. I liked it more than I thought I would. I liked how different the tone was from Persuasion, and that gives me hope for reading the other books when I get round to it, and perhaps reading up a bit more about Austen herself. But until next time, bye.